Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my siblings with my estranged mother's end-of-life care? My mother, who I have been estranged from my entire adult life and since the age of 15, is terminally ill. She wasn't a great mother to any of her kids. There's me, 27 male, and my sisters, 23 female, 20 female, and my brother, 22 male. But in saying that, she treated me the worst and left me homeless at the age of 15 because I looked the most like our father, who she hated with every fiber of her being. And don't ask me why she had 4 kids with him, I have no idea. I went entirely no contact from that point on. My siblings still lived with her, and according to them, she got better once I was gone. My siblings have always downplayed how bad it was for me and how bad she treated me. So while I still talk to them, I am not close to them, and I don't know if there's a future where that will ever happen. Which is why I refused to help them with her end-of-life care now that she's terminally ill. They say she has about a year left and needs a lot more help than they can cover. I told them it was not my job to make sure she goes out of this world in comfort and peace. They told me she's still our mother, and I told them she was the fucking worst mother, that I would not shed a tear over her, and I felt not one single ounce of obligation to her. They tried the do it for us angle, and I told them they have minimized the stuff she did to me, even though they said she got a little better once I was gone. So they know she hated me to her core. They told me I'm still her son, still their brother, and I'm the oldest. I even got a call from her adult social worker who had been told to contact me by my siblings. She wanted to go over my mother's care with me. I explained I would not be taking part in the end-of-life care for my mother, which surprised her, but she left it alone. My siblings think I'm a monster, and they say I should be willing to do something. This has turned into a fight 3 times already. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I can so relate to this. You owe neither her nor your siblings anything. If you wanted to try contacting your mother and see if there is any slightest amount of true remorse for the way she treated you, that may be worth considering, because once she's gone, there's 0 chance of any kind of resolution. But at the same time, if she's anything like mine was, she'll never admit to anything she did or being wrong in any way, in which case, carry on living your life apart from her. That's apparently what she wanted anyway. I don't want to try. I see her as a monster, and I think the world will be better off with her gone. There is no room for reconciliation between us and me. Maybe if she hadn't been so awful and hadn't left me homeless at 15, but the day she did that was the day there was truly no coming back. I'm sorry you had any experience with this. When your parents are awful, it leaves so much trauma, and I still work on myself to make sure it doesn't turn me into an awful husband or father, future father. Not the a-hole. You're making yourself a priority, which it sounds like your mother never did. If things truly got better, she had, and still has every opportunity to try and make things right. Yep, but I think better means she was just less awful, not that it got, like, amazingly better. They feel like she improved enough that she was worth helping. That is their right, but I never got that. You deserve to be cared about, and she still isn't showing you that courtesy. Not the a-hole, not even a little bit dot. Your mother is the monster. Tell your siblings you're willing to show her the same compassion she showed you when she made you homeless at 15. I'd imagine it would be hard to feel like a son to a person who acted nothing like a mother towards you. Your siblings don't get to tell you what your obligations are. It's their business if they want to overlook her appalling actions. And the fact they're saying that she got better after you were kicked out, whoop-de-fucking-do. Not the a-hole. I've said to my father that if my mother was on her deathbed, I wouldn't visit and I wouldn't cry at her funeral, and don't bother inviting me. What your mother did to you and the abuse she put you through is inexcusable, and only you can decide, now that you're a fully functioning adult, how much effort to put into the relationship she ruined. How sad that the person who created you and gave you life had one basic job of loving you and messed it up so badly, sending you strength, my friend. Am I the a-hole for refusing to sit next to a picture of my late husband and telling my daughter I will not be going to her wedding if that is her plan? My late husband and I didn't have a good relationship. He struggled with alcoholism and ultimately drank himself to death after I divorced him. After some time, I remarried, but my daughter doesn't get along with my new husband. They have a strained relationship, and I married him while she was in college. She has hated that I have remarried and is kinda a dick to my husband. My daughter is getting married soon, and while I'm excited for her, I've had some concerns about how she's planning the wedding. She mentioned wanting to include a picture of my late husband at the ceremony, which I completely understand as a way to honor him. However, she also wants me to sit next to his picture during the ceremony, and my husband would sit elsewhere. I told her that I'm not comfortable with that arrangement. I also learned she wanted me to sit with a picture at the family table, and my husband wouldn't be sitting there either. I told her no. She got upset and said I was being selfish and disrespectful to her and her father's memory. I told her that if that's her plan, I won't be able to attend the wedding. She called me a jerk, and now family is involved. Info. To clarify, she wants you to sit alone with a photograph rather than with your husband. I feel like I must be missing something because that's absurd. Yes. Not the a-hole. It's one thing to honor her father, but it's another thing to use him to take a dig at your husband. If she chooses to carry on with this plan, I would tell her that you're happy to sit with your living husband at another table and that her deceased father can be the center of attention at the family table. It will keep you comfortable with your spouse, and also call attention to this whack-a-doodle plan. Not the a-hole. A simple compassion exercise would hopefully solve this. Imagine things were reversed, and she were asked to attend a wedding with her fiancé, but would not be able to be in proximity to her fiancé. Instead, she must sit next to an image of a toxic ex who the bride had a great relationship with. Wouldn't she find that very disrespectful? Wouldn't she feel hurt by someone who loves her asking her to disrespect her partner and herself? Something brides and grooms need to learn is that their big day is not all about them. They don't get to run roughshod over human decency to fulfill some strange fairy tale. That's not reality. I think you've extended plenty of grace in understanding that your daughter had a positive relationship with her father, and therefore his memory would be included in her wedding. In asking you to actively disrespect your husband, she is crossing a line. Your boundary is reasonable. I'm so sorry your daughter is not currently capable of processing basic human empathy. I have found in my experience that when you ask people who come up with harebrained ideas like this to do a comparison exercise, they just generate like 20 excuses why it's not the same thing. Not that OP shouldn't try, but in my experience, the sort of person who would dream this up and the sort of person with the self-awareness to be like, okay, actually, I wouldn't want to do this if it were asked of me, have very little overlap on the Venn diagram. Honestly, since you divorced before he passed, he's not even your late husband, he's your ex-husband. She can honor his memory all day long, but it would be ridiculous to sit you next to your ex instead of your spouse, even if your ex was still alive. I could see a modest compromise of sitting next to the picture and your spouse during the ceremony if you feel comfortable with that. But eating dinner with a picture of your ex instead of your actual spouse is absurd. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Of course, she wants to remember her dad and have him present at her wedding. I'm sure the loss is painful and significant as she approaches this important day. But having you sit next to a photo, especially considering you history with him, is ghoulish. You divorced, and that's not a light decision. You had to make a hard choice in life to no longer tie yourself to him. And having you sit next to a photo of him ties you back together in his death. There are ways of honoring the dead and remembering them during milestones. But your daughter doesn't get to disrespect the living in order to do so. Am I the a-hole for turning off the vacation house security cameras so my elderly father can't watch us? Our family has a remote vacation home. Visitors have always gone there to slow down and escape real life. Though he still drives, my aging father, 86, can't get to the house very often anymore. As a way to still connect with the house, he often enjoys watching the 2 exterior security cameras on his laptop, where he can see deer, listen to birds, and occasionally see the local caretaker swing in to check on the place. The issue? These days when we visit the house without him, he insists we keep the cameras on. He claims he never watches us because he doesn't have the time or interest. But when I say, Then why do you care if I turn off the video when I'm there? He fumbles, admitting that he very occasionally likes to check in to see how we are spending our time. It's clear he watches us closely. He slipped once and told me that he didn't like me doing something he could have only seen on the camera. And it doesn't help that the cameras send him alerts when they detect movement. Any stern discussion about us feeling uncomfortable, how it violates our privacy, or how he never had to contend with his father spying on him, always ends with him laying it on thick, with some form of, how could you deprive me this one simple joy? When old age and other considerations keep me away from the house I built and love so much. Can't you just turn the cameras off when I am dead and gone? I get it. He can see his grandkids running around, he can see us doing yard work and playing with the dog, and he is the patriarch, and we don't want to disappoint him. But both my sister and I feel like we have to act differently than we would otherwise. Knowing that we are basically in our own personal episode of The Truman Show diminishes the unique nature of our remote familial sanctuary and impedes our ability to relax when we're on vacation. The last time I was there, despite my father's displeasure, I decided to put my foot down and cut the video feed. Am I the a-hole? Edit for clarification. 1. My father had the house built many years ago, and by any measure it is his house, though we all grew up using and loving it. 2. Technically, for tax purposes, the house is now equally owned by my father, my sister, and I. 3. I have no kids and only visit the house with my wife. 4. My sister has kids. 5. Only in the past 2 years, when I agreed to add 2 exterior security cameras, did this become an issue. No a-holes here. You're entitled to some privacy at your family vacation home. At the same time, he owns the house and has shared it with you for taxes benefits when he passes, which he didn't have to do. Maybe cut the cameras on for small amounts of time if he wants to see the grandkids or the birds, but only what you're comfortable with. Technically, it is owned 3 ways: father, sister, and I. But he built it, and by any measure, it is his. He just divided the ownership for tax purposes. He did the IRS shuffle, so whether it is his or not, everyone should have an equal say in the use of the cameras. Put it to a vote. Not the a-hole. No a-holes here. Having somebody watch you through cameras is a crazy violation of privacy. You aren't the a-hole for turning them off. Even if the cabin is his, letting people stay there with the condition that he watched through cameras is creepy and weird. So you still weren't an a-hole for turning off the cameras. If he wants to tell you you can't use the cabin, that's fine, but he can't creepily watch. And yet, poor old Dad, he can no longer make it to the cabin, and he craves that contact with his family. What harm could it do, he is probably thinking, to just watch through the camera see things? He's wrong, and his brain is likely fading. But I'm not going to call him an a-hole for that. If you want to do something nice for him, maybe you could let him know that at 3 o'clock it's pool time or game time, and he can watch for an hour then, or something like that. It's so hard when parents age. You lay it out exactly right. And that's why this may or may not be a moral or ethical dilemma, but it is definitely a personal dilemma. Practically speaking, this is an invasion of privacy. And in my case, he mostly watches just to see what chores and house maintenance I am doing, so he can subtly correct or comment on something I did or didn't do. Bugs me to no end. But I know he is old and doesn't get to the house too often, and does genuinely derive joy from seeing the weather and the animals, and us enjoying the place. And FYW, he's actually not fading at all, sharp as a tack, still drives, is on his computer all day working. I like your idea of limiting the time the cameras are on, but if we are reduced to that, it seems it'd be more meaningful to schedule a video FaceTime session so we can interact and talk, rather than watch random moments on a security camera. Thanks for your thoughtful comment. Appreciated. If it really is just about seeing the family and grandkids, turning off the cameras, but FaceTiming and sending him pics and vids while at the cabin feels like a good compromise. I get it. My dad has access to our Ring camera on the doorbell, which is great from a security perspective. I live with my 92-year-old grandmother. However, I'm always aware that he can see me when I'm at the door. Sometimes he'll come over the speaker and ask what I'm doing, or ask about who I was talking to. I'm 50, by the way. I'm never doing anything that I shouldn't, but I am very much aware of it, and it does change things. When I was trying to sneak something for his birthday, I was conveniently carrying a large box that got placed in front of the camera. You might need to resort to those kinds of things. Doing yard work? Oh, I didn't realize that the shovel was blocking the camera. I appreciate your empathy, and sounds like you are in a very similar situation. Unfortunately, the cameras are up just high enough that no garden tool would be able to reach them. But I love the creative thinking. Maybe I could forget to put the ladder away every time I am at the house. Am I the a-hole for wanting my girlfriend to work more? I, 30 male, am pretty well established in my career and am fortunate to make a good income working full-time. I've been with my girlfriend, 28 female, for around 1.5 years, who just finished school and has been working as a dancer in a club, as well as working with a private charter company off and on. I loaned my girlfriend about $5 to help put her through school since she could not afford it, and allowed her to work when she could, while also living at my house completely free. She graduated from school around 4 months ago and has only applied to 1 or 2 jobs. She has been working maybe 3 days per week, if that. She was working at the charter company when I met her, but I gave her permission to start working as a dancer again while in school because she said she brings in a lot of money. I am getting frustrated because I pay for the majority of dates we go on. Always have to pay more during travel plans, expected to pay for a weekly dinner date night for both of us, etc., while also having her still owe me around $4 of the $5 I originally loaned her for school. Basically picking up her slack financially for things we'd like to do. My solution in the past has just been to stop spending money like this, but she sees it as me not valuing her. She has told me dancing takes a toll on her body because it requires a lot of upper body strength, so can't work every day, which I understand, and her other job is inconsistent with how much they need her. She is pretty adamant about not working a job that makes below a certain income. I want her to pick up another job in the meantime, or try to work a little more at her other 2 jobs, so that she can make some money with all this free time she has. Am I the a-hole? You're not an a-hole for wanting her to pull her weight financially and to pay back the money you loaned her. However, you're going to get several "you are the a-hole" votes for your wording on this, and you may have a lot of people who don't read beyond these words. But I gave her permission to start working as a dancer again. No offense, but dude, what do you expect? You decided to date a stripper, not a yuppie. She chose a job where instead of having to work hard and learn valuable skills, she just has men pay for her company because she is young and pretty. Why would she expect any different from you? Everyone sucks here. Strippers make 6 figures. Yes, even only working 2-3 nights a week. She is not hurting for cash. She would just rather spend your money than hers. That said, you know the situation. She's basically a gold digger. You've known this, and you should know that it won't change. You can pay up and keep the hot stripper girlfriend or stop and end the relationship. Don't complain. Just pick one. Am I the a-hole for snapping at my wife and calling her crazy because she wants me to take a paternity test for my nephew? Throwaway account for obvious reasons. My wife and I have been married for 10 years and together for 14. We are child-free. I also have a nephew who's currently 13, and I'm not going to lie, he looks a lot like me and has a lot of the same facial features as me. I am really proud of him, and we have a close bond. I have played a father-like role in his life since he was a kid. He has a deadbeat father, and my sister divorced him long ago. A couple of my family members have commented on how my nephew looks a lot like me. And while I initially thought it was wholesome, my wife, for some reason, became very insecure and started getting doubts. She was questioning why I needed to play such a prominent role in my nephew's life, why my nephew had autism, etc. The insinuations just became weird and made me uncomfortable. I do agree that my sister has played some part in my wife's insecurities because of her dry humor. During family gatherings, my sister jokes a lot about how wholesome it is that her son looks like me and that she couldn't be happier. It's obviously a joke, but I spoke to my sister and asked if she could tone it down a bit because it was making my wife a bit crazy. However, last night, my wife asked if I could take a paternity test just for her peace of mind. That's when I finally snapped and called her crazy and that marrying her was the biggest mistake of my life. I did immediately regret saying it because I meant none of it. My wife is the love of my life. but my wife got quiet and started crying shortly after, and I had to console her. Was I the a-hole? She thinks you had a baby with your own sister? Not your brother's wife or anything but your own sister. No, that is crazy. My oldest niece is a miniature version of me, looks and attitude, Lowell. I have never once been accused of incest with my brother. OP, your wife is on some other level if insecure. You are not the a-hole at all. She needs therapy. It's genetics. And sometimes a niece or nephew can look just like that aunt or uncle. Like it's crazy to insinuate incest because he looks like his uncle. Does she not understand they are siblings and have similar genetics? Two full-blood siblings share about 50% of their DNA. That means the odds of OP sharing significant features with his nephew are 1 in 4, which not rare. Your wife's new homework is Punnett squares. For real, my nephew looks exactly like me, and I never even considered this happening. I'm not married, but if I had a wife that was like, prove to me you didn't fuck your sister, I'd be mortified, maybe unrecoverable so. Not the a-hole. Of course he has your genes from your sister. Not from you! Jesus. Send her to a biology class.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos.